all the salespeople show up to sell something and nobody shows up to buy. So then you've got this awkward tension of a lot of sales and no buyers in one spot. Doesn't make for a really fun party a lot of the times. The second kind of misconception I think is that people don't know how, or they're afraid nobody's going to show up, and there's a lot of fear around this. So can you talk maybe about the ideal attitude for hosting an event, and how do we kind of prepare ourselves so that we feel like there's not going to be a disaster? People are going to be talking about us for the good reasons, not the bad ones.
So the number one fear of any new host, if you've never hosted a meetup, a networking event, even a happy hour or a housewarming party, the number one fear for a new host is just what you said, that nobody will show up. Or worse, that only 2 or 3 people will show up. And then it's like, oh God, what have I done? And so much of my work involves guaranteeing that you have a nearly full attendance rate. Folks who follow my list report over a 93% attendance rate. And we do that through like double, triple opt-ins, many reminder messages, stacking the invitation list. I'll give you one example. You're going to test out your date and time with what I call your core group, and you're going to get at least 5 yeses. The message I send for that, let's say I was planning a happy hour on Wednesday, October the 10th. I would message a bunch of people, maybe 5 or 10 of my neighbors, my colleagues, my close confidants, and say, hey, I'm thinking of hosting a happy hour on Wednesday the 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. If I do it, would you come? And you're going to get 5 yeses before you even plan it. Because in sales, we have different levels of relationships. And there are people that we know well, who I call your core group. And if only they show up and it's only 5 people, it's still okay because you feel comfortable with them. You're not trying to impress them. But then that larger list of people, I call them the great guests. I don't want to invite them unless I know I'm actually going to do it and going to have people there. So I start with that group, that core group. I get my 5 yeses. Then I build the invitation. Then I invite other people. Then I have the confidence to know that I can invite these others because there's already going to be people there.
I love that. And I think the beauty part of it is sometimes they'll go, oh, did you know that's the Super Bowl or something? And you're like, oh, gosh, I missed it. Right?
Especially with these random holidays and other things that are happening. I'm like, I forget if it was like Labor Day or something, but I didn't actually have it on my calendar. By the way, we try not to host events on red level days. Red level days are days that are socially competitive. Labor Day would be a great example. A Tuesday after Labor Day is probably not a good example because they have stuff to do. I also think that red level days are Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. And I'll tell you why. Because in a big city, if you live in a big city or not, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays are kind of people's days to go out and go big. And you're more likely to get bumped from something else, whether it's a family, duty, responsibility, somebody else's party or event. So I really recommend people to host on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, because you're less likely to get bumped. You're more likely for people to say yes. It's easier for them to show up. And we can talk about why I choose those days and why it's only 2 hours long, which is very important.
Oh, yeah.
That is a major mistake people make, is they set a start time, but not an end time. Yes, the 2 hours.
The 2-hour cocktail party is the name of the game there. And there's some other great stuff here in the book, too, that I love. Just practical tips like you're giving right there of, starting 3 weeks out and stuff. So if you try and do it 3 months out, stuff changes. If you try and do it 3 days out, you're going to have trouble getting traction and stuff. That's just a nice little tip of when to start kind of that planning and promotion and invitation sequence and stuff.
Generally, I tell people, look, for your first party, if you have never hosted before, let me help you make it a success. I have hosted hundreds of events, literally probably 700 events now. I have helped over 400 people host their first event. And everything I do is around guaranteeing that your first one will be a success. And so it may seem reductive. It may seem obvious, like, oh God, why is he telling me that? But it's just because I want your first one to be a success, because this is what salespeople know. You have to make hosting a habit. You cannot just do this once. I can write a book that can give you one good party. And the reality is, at the end of it, you'll say, wow, that was great. And yet I don't want to do it again. I'm exhausted. It was too much work. I didn't get what I wanted out of it, right? The biggest success will come in your sales career if you can make hosting a habit, so that you go through life collecting people through this. Sometimes I call it a friendship funnel, but we think about building our network as this funnel of all these acquaintances, and how do you funnel them into your events to then build the relationship later on.